Mekong friends from around the world, welcome. 2 years ago, I launched what I call the State of the Mekong Address, or SOMA for short, basically to highlight the sense of urgency of Mekong issues and to call for actions at local, national, regional, and global levels. With the scale of the challenges, our feet should be on fire. 1 year later, I gave my second SOMA, highlighting progress at different levels, but there were still 5 troubling trends that may compromise Mekong health: flow regime change, reduction in sediment, salinity intrusion, plastic pollution, climate change because of floods and drought. And then on the 5th of April last year, we took and convened the 4th MRC Summit, where the leaders of the Mekong issue a very ambitious political declaration, issuing out 7 strategic priorities to deal with the challenges that we have identified and to mobilize collective efforts to tackle them. In fact, at the international conference of that summit last year, you all remember, everybody congregated in Vientiane and viewed the MRC cooperation as a leading model of transboundary governance. This year, we will highly anticipate the release of the State of the Basin report, as well as the Mekong Atlas. Compared to 5 to 7 or 10 years ago, the Mekong has changed dramatically, for better and for worse. Among better news, the Mekong region has experienced peace, which we cannot say is the case all around the world. Economically, the Mekong countries have seen rapid growth, fueled by developments in the water and related sectors, bringing economic benefits and poverty reduction. Various sectors contributed to this growth, $63 billion annually. Hydropower, rice production, tourism have seen enormous growth, as well as navigation and agriculture. Socially, all the Mekong countries have made considerable progress in their living standards, in their well-being, right, compared to 10 years ago. Food availability, access to drinking water, basic sanitation, right, increased across the board. Malnutrition, water-related diseases have gone down. But we should not rest on our laurels as we check the state of the environment. I have mixed news for the what I call 5 troubling trends that I spoke about last year. In 23, for example, the basins continue to experience a roller coaster of hydromet conditions. In the central part of the basin, we face drought. Right? No rain was found. For example, if you look at February, was an average of about 5 milliliter of rain. And then in March, 9 millimeter. Right? But then, starting from June to October, tropical storms and typhoons hit. And if you remember, in August of last year in Vientiane even, the water level came up to about 12 meter high, almost flat, some part of Vientiane. And if you go up north to Chiang Khăn, it was 14 meter. And then if you go downstream to Nakhon Phanom, it was 10 meter. The storage, actually, by some hydropower projects did alleviate flooding to some level. But for most of the wet season, we experienced lower flow than historically the case. And this continued to impact the Tonle Sap, Southeast Asia's largest and most iconic lake. Even though the reverse flow came up to acceptable minimum level, say by mid-August, it was still quite low. And the trend is quite alarming. Since 2020, the reverse flow has happened late. It expands way less than it should, and it is shorter than usual. Climate change continues to wreak havoc on the basin. During the wet season, while we are spared mainstream flooding for the most part, the basin still experiences a lot of flash floods, especially here in this country, in Laos, followed by Cambodia and Vietnam. Overall, though, this past decade, we experienced more frequent and severe drought than usual compared to the last. But make no mistake, with climate change, nothing is certain. In the next decade, we may face more floods. On sediment, we know more than a few years ago. On the one hand, we observe that there is some stability and slight reduction from the northern part of the basin, say in Chiang San, down to the central part in 𝐾𝐝𝐬𝐬. And we have received some initial results from Sayaburi hydropower project about no significant change in sediment between upstream and downstream. So this is encouraging news. But we are still deeply concerned with significant sediment drop further downstream. So for example, our measurement in Phnom Penh Station, we have seen for the last decade quite a big drop. And then in Tan Chau, almost half. And a recent study finds that 35 to 55 million cubic meters of sand have been taken out of the delta, than 2 to 4 million naturally being deposited. Luckily, the changes in the flow regime, sediment, salinity intrusion have not seriously affected the water quality of the mainstream. Out of our 2 monitoring stations, about 15 are still excellent, and the rest are quite good. And while wild fisheries in general are facing significant threats from overexploitation, from drought, from dams, with declining fisheries and catch, especially in the 3S, that is Se San, Se Proc, Se Kong, and Thong Le Sap. But we cannot blame any single factor alone. Our monitoring data shows that from the northern part of the basin, say the Lao-Chinese border, down to the central part, fish abundance is still stable. And in the Mekong Delta, it has also been stable and sometimes even increased. Now that you see a broad picture of the basin, some good news, some bad news, let me tell you about what's being done about it. This may surprise you, but the Mekong is quite lucky than most international rivers. This is because we have the 1995 Mekong Agreement, which is comprehensive, which is relevant and fit for purpose. We have regional institutions like the Mekong River Commission, which is an organization of the countries, by the countries, and for the countries. The very title, if you recall, of the Mekong Agreement is an agreement to cooperate. It's an agreement for sustainable development. The agreement provides a framework, a platform, a set of principles, procedures, and obligations for international water use. But at the end of the day, it requires cooperation. Some of us may want the agreement to have more teeth, legal teeth. Yet this could be a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it may increase compliance and enforcement. But on the other hand, if you think about it, it can also increase strict interpretation, right? Where if there was no clause in the agreement where it obligates states to act, there may be no action. Or it can create disputes over interpretation, right? With armies of lawyers arguing in courts. So both cases, in our view, are not good for the relations among countries, and also not good for Mekong Basin management. So be careful what you wish for. Instead, our approach has been to actively call for cooperation, based on the one Mekong, one spirit. We commend each other and appreciate each other when cooperation is shown. We politely remind each other, often quietly, when actions may not be in line with the agreement or the procedure. We request, we nudge, We encourage each other to show cooperative spirit, and sometimes when necessary, to even go beyond the procedures in order to work together. The vision for the Mekong River Basin is clear and shared by our member countries. That is to have a basin that is economically prosperous, so which means we are supportive of countries' development. A basin that is environmentally sound, which means that this development must be in harmony with the environment. We want a basin that is socially just, which means that we need to take care of the vulnerable people from the effects of climate change, from the effects of development. So how does the Mekong River Commission contribute to this vision? Our mandate is to coordinate and promote. We do not regulate. We do not police. We plan, we monitor, we advise, we facilitate, we build capacity of the countries to police developments in their own countries, which affects other countries. Here are three broad sets of strategic actions that we have done and continue to do. First, economics. By the end of the year, our proactive regional planning, complemented by our joint study with China, will deliver new ideas for joint investment projects, for basin-wide projects, for adaptation measures, including seasonal and pump storage, solar and wind. Implementation of these will increase benefits for the countries. Aid in energy transition, aid in regional grid connectivity, aid in water security, ensuring water security for floods and droughts. We are also bringing in better irrigation technologies, facilitating investment in navigation, ports, river information service, common rules to increase trade. Second, environment. To maintain environmental balance, we work with countries to ensure that their major development projects do not have significant transboundary impacts. Avoid it, if possible. Minimize, definitely. Mitigate, definitely. The prior consultation process and the joint action plan for Pak Bang, Pak Lai, Luang Prabang resulted, we have seen substantial improvements in mitigation measures. The notification of the Don Sahong extension went through MRC assessment and information sharing in Cambodia and Vietnam, and also site visits and investigation of the potential transboundary issues. The recent application of the Transboundary Environmental Impact Assessment Guidelines in the Sekong A hydropower project yield better information sharing, transparency, independent assessment, and now we are talking to improve the dam design, as well as to enhance the national EIA process so that future projects will be even stronger in terms of regulation. Speaking of monitoring, we are increasing our coverage of the basin, both on the ground and satellite. The member countries recently agreed to share operational data from dams. These new sets of data will help us monitor and forecast the river much better, right? Floods, drought situation, and get the information to the target communities via our integrated dashboard, via our flood and drought TV, via our upcoming app. Under intense development, this app, we will preview it at the upcoming stakeholder regional forum in June. And the app will also have a community function. And along with our enhanced drought and flood monitoring and forecasting, we are issuing next month, our drought adaptation guidelines. And if you visit our regional and flood and drought management center in Phnom Penh, you will see our new situation room. And by October, if you return to this headquarters, you will see a new situation room and the MRC visitor center. Third, people. For all the above actions, we have to do with special attention to people, especially vulnerable people. Data sharing, timely information provision, consultation, dissemination are vital to help them prepare for changes, right? But it's not enough. For development to be socially just, you need to help them improve their lives. And that is why we need concrete investment. And we are very glad that the Global Environment Facility is granting the Mekong River Commission and its member countries $12 million to help with this transboundary fishery management, to improve value chain, to reconnect swimways, to offer better livelihoods. And we are also glad that Germany has pledged to support the Mekong Fund trial, which will go to improving ecosystem and livelihoods. And this year, we are also announcing new funding and support from Canada, from Germany, from South Korea, and from the United States. In addition to global finance, we can also learn from each other. South-South cooperation. And this is why institutions like the Thai Institute for Scientific and Technological Research, where they have a lot of entrepreneurial programs to help communities and industry adapt to change. Friends, for the Mekong to be prosperous, sound, just, and resilient, we need a strong MRC that is led, driven by the countries. That we pat each other on the back when things go right, that we remind each other when things go wrong, that we listen to each other's requests and work together to issues on cross borders. Yet countries working together can go so far. We need to look north, look south, and beyond, and sometimes at the same time. To the north, we need a strong relationship, cooperation, and indeed friendship with China and Myanmar. Annual dialogue, data sharing, joint study, institutional linkages, joint projects are vital. To the south, we need a strong relationship, cooperation, and friendship with the rest of ASEAN. And after Indonesia, who signed MOU with us this year, we hope that other non-Mekong ASEAN members will follow and join the MRC as partners. And there is no better time than this year because the ASEAN chair returns to Laos, a Mekong country, after traveling to Cambodia in 2022 and Vietnam in 2020. The MRC cooperation with ASEAN will be further elevated this year, this September, when we hold the second ASEAN MRC Water Security Dialogue, leading up to the summits in October. And in the future, there will be special MRC summits on the sideline of the ASEAN summits. And beyond North and South, we need to maintain the international identity of the Mekong River Commission, born out of the UN 7 years ago, nurtured and supported by development partners to become a riparian-led, world-class river basin organization of today. The MRC is on track to self-finance in 2030, no doubt about it. But we cannot do it alone. Lots of challenges left, as I have identified. So we welcome strong cooperation, strong partnership with our development partners for years to come. Friends, join us to make a Mekong that is economically prosperous, environmentally sound, socially just, and climate resilient. But most of all, keep the Mekong peaceful by looking north, south, and beyond. Happy Mekong Day. Thank you very much.